Hi, I'm Beth from Sew Country, and today's tutorial is for the Light Up Mav Pack. So what I am doing is I got this cut and sew kit from K&A Custom Fabrics and Hardware, and it comes with everything you need to make this light up bag. I have made one other light up bag and I loved it, and so I wanted to do another one. The first one went way better than I thought it would, and so I'm excited to try this one. But you can see you get the roll first, and on the roll has everything you need. So this is going to be the panel. Then you'll have your gussets. These are your sling tabs, your D-rings, your zipper tabs, everything. Then this will be the front, and the lights will be able to glow through it. And then this part will be the back of the bag. And then of course we have the interior. Let me show you what the interior looks like. It's a very light blue color. I don't know how, yeah, you can barely see that. So it's a very light color. The reason why it's very light is so the lights can kind of reflect off of it and you get the most glow. So inside the kit, we of course have the light itself, the battery pack, and the lights that I'm going to sew in the bag. I'll show you how I do this, of course, step by step. We're going to have this gorgeous webbing. This is Lord of the Rings. This is a complete Lord of the Rings theme. I'm in love with it. I don't know. Let me take this and get this out and see if you can see this clearly. Look at that. It's just stunning. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I've been so excited for this round. I have bought so much of the Lord of the Rings fabric. The zipper pull, it's just amazing. So this is all the materials I'll need. I'll need to add a little bit of hardware like my D-rings, my strap, my swivel hooks, things like that. I'm also going to be adding one other thing. I'm going to bind this bag, so I'll need to add that to it. But I wanted to show you all the pieces before I started cutting everything out. So now that you've seen this, what I'll do is I'll go off camera and I'll cut out every piece, and then we'll talk about the pieces, and then we'll sew this up. If you've sewn a Mav Pack before, you know how quick they are. And making a light up one really takes just maybe a little bit extra time, of course, but not hardly any extra time at all. So let's go ahead and get these cut out, and we'll go over how to sew up this bag. So I have everything cut out for my light up Mav Pack. The only thing I don't have ready at this moment is my binding, and I'll do that a little bit later, but I wanted to go ahead and get started with everything first. So this will be our front panel, and this is that jelly. So I don't know if you can see, but you can see through it, so the lights will be able to shine through that. That's going to be the front. The back will be this piece right here. It is a vinyl, and I already went ahead and made the placements for where I will add that metal tag. This is going to be the lining for the back. The front will not have a lining as it's the jelly. It won't need one, but the back will. I will put this lining here. I went ahead and interfaced this with a Royal Pixie Heavy. It's like a Decaville Light equivalent. I even kept it in a seam allowance because I already know that I'm binding this bag. So those are the three main panel pieces we need. Then we are going to have our top zipper gusset piece. I only have one since I'm using jelly for this as well. I do not need a lining, so that's the one zipper gusset piece that I will attach to my zipper. This is going to be that bottom gusset that goes around the bottom of the bag. I have one in vinyl. I don't know if you can see all of that. And then I have one in the lining. Again, I interface that lining with the Royal Pixie Heavy. I'm going to make a slip pocket for the inside of this bag. I went ahead and interfaced it with Royal Pixie Heavy, but I really didn't need to. I could have used light. It's just the heavy was right beside me, so I went ahead and did it. But I'm making a slip pocket because this is what I will use to hold the battery pack in the bag. I also have these two end pieces for the webbing. They're just decorative and just add a bit like a unique touch to the end of the webbing. I'm going to have my D-ring anchors. The pattern tells you how to cut these. She gives you the measurements, and it's a square, and then you cut it diagonally. So I have two of the sling tab top pieces, both vinyl. I went ahead and cheated and used that beautiful webbing that I have in this package to make my D-ring connector. So I'm making 3 of these. You don't have to make 3, you could only make 2, but I want to make 3 because I'm not for sure who's getting this bag. And I also, for my own preferences, I like to switch sides of the way I wear bags at times. So I have that. I have 2 zipper pulls. I have my number 5 zipper tape. I already showed you that metal tag that I'm putting on the bag. I also have the webbing cut to the measurements in the pattern. I have some swivel hooks and an adjustable bar, and I think that's all the hardware that I need and that I'm using. So what I'm going to do first is just work on some basic prep things. This bag is going to come together really quick. If you've seen my other videos on the Mav Pack, you know it comes together quick, but this one is just the same, even a little bit quicker because we're using some jelly. You may think the light-up bags are kind of hard to do, but they're really not. So the first things I want to do is I want to go ahead and make these connectors and get them out of the way. So I want to, and I don't have to, but I really want to baste these D-rings up at the top. I thought about putting a rivet in there, but I thought I would just go ahead and sew across there on all 3 of these. And then I'm also going to go ahead and add this tag and get it taken care of right away. The other thing I'll do, since I'm sitting down and sewing everything all at once, is I'm going to go ahead and start making that slip pocket. Like I said, this slip pocket is going to be for to hold the battery pack. And you can see my slip pocket will fit perfectly across the width of this bag. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sew across the bottom. I'm going to place this right sides together. So the 2 slip pocket pieces are right sides together. I'm just going to sew across the bottom and the top. I'm going to turn it, and then I will just top stitch across the top. I'm going to leave these openings completely open. That's how I'll turn this slip pocket, and then I'll just catch them in the seam allowance whenever I'm sewing the bag up. So let's go ahead and do those steps now to get this pattern started. So I got the D-ring connector sewn. I will trim up my threads, but that is all I need to do with these. So I'll go ahead and set these aside for just a few minutes. I'm going to go ahead and turn this slip pocket out through the bottom. Like I said, I did make mine a little too stiff. Okay, I'm definitely going to take this over and iron it flat, and then I will come back and top stitch it. The thing is I'm going to add a grommet to this. That is going to be the way that I keep the battery in here secure, but I let the lights come out. So I wanted it a little stiffer. It'll be okay. So I'm going to take this over and iron it, and I'm going to go ahead and add the grommet off camera. For this tag, what I did is I took out my metal back and I made 2 marks so that it was centered on this piece. I'm just going to use my seam ripper to poke very small holes. If I need to make them bigger, I'll come back, but just little holes to try to get the prongs through on my metal plate. Of course, make sure you don't install it upside down. I'm known to do things like that. I just poke it through, and then I will add a piece of Pixie Heavy on the back of this to kind of help secure it. And then I'll just slip on that bracket on the back, and I'm going to fold my prongs to the inside just because I like to do that better. Then at that point, if you want to put a piece of duct tape or even another piece of interfacing over it so that these prongs don't have any chance of rubbing against your lining, you can do that as well. So those are the steps I'm going to do real quick. I added the metal tag, I did add a piece of interfacing, and then just push the prongs down to the inside. Okay, so I have my slip pocket and I have the grommet attached. Grommets are not hard to attach. It's basically you just punch the hole with the press, with the dies in the press, and then you just put the grommet there. It's just where I have my setup. It's hard to bring the camera over there or bring it over here, so it's easier to do it off camera. I'm just going to top stitch on the top. This will end up being my bottom. No specific placement for where I put the grommet. I just know I want it kind of down low, and I don't want it in either seam allowance here so it's not hit with the needle. So I'll top stitch here, and then I'm going to go ahead and pull out the lining, and I'm going to add it to the lining. So I will just, let's see, probably around here. That's a pretty good placement for me for that pocket. So I will top stitch across the top, based on the sides, and then sew across the bottom, and that will complete the lining. That's all I'm doing to the one lining piece. When I top stitch on my slip pocket, I'm just going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away. And then I'll just put it back on here and go ahead and baste around the sides and then sew the bottom. And again, my placement's not perfect on here. I just know I don't want that grommet too low so that it gets caught in this seam allowance. So that looks like a good placement to me. Not really a big deal on this. The lining piece is done. Let's go ahead and work on those connector pieces. So for this piece, it's pretty simple. We're just going to baste that in place. So I'm going to, I don't like a very long connector, so I'm going to center the connector on one of these pieces. You can baste that in place, but I think I don't need to. I think I'm just going to go ahead and cheat a little. So I have the two top sling tabs right sides together. I have a D-ring connector sandwiched in between with the connector facing down. What we are going to do now is we're going to sew around the side, the top, and the other side, leaving that bottom completely open. That is how we'll turn it. And that's also, this bottom part is the part we will attach to the top back of the bag. Now, almost everyone suggests to not trim down that webbing. It just provides a little extra security. And also, if you feel up to it, you can rivet that in place just to help even more security. I don't know if I'm going to rivet or not. We'll see how I'm feeling after the bag's done. But I did trim off my corners just to help with a little bit extra bulk. And I'm going to slowly take my time to get this vinyl and turn it out. So now I'm going to poke out those corners. So this is what I have. I am going to top stitch around the top and the sides, and then I'll baste that bottom closed. And then I can go ahead and add this to the back piece. But now what I want to do is I can simply find the center spot here at the top on the back. And I don't know if you've noticed, but this pattern has like two little like divots almost on it. And so it's the perfect placement for this. And so I usually can just follow that and do great. I eyeball it a lot of the times. It gets me in trouble a lot, but I think we're okay. Let's go ahead and baste that on. Since the material I'm using has the same print on each side, I don't have to worry about which way I add it on there. Let's go ahead and work on these other connector pieces now. So we're going to take this long edge here, and that's where we fold. I'm just going to make a sharp crease. I'm going to take one of these connectors and slip it in there. And this is what it looks like. I'm going to sew along this bottom edge, back stitching, of course, when I start and stop. Do the same thing for this one. If you already know which side this bag is going to be worn on, you just need to make one of these. You don't need to make two. So let's sew with the seam allowance given in the pattern. Again, I'm not going to trim off that webbing. I'm simply going to poke this out, slowly folding that webbing down, pulling on the connector. I'll use my stiletto to just poke this a little. I should have probably trimmed that corner. I'll do it on the next one, but you can tell it's not bad at all. And then I am going to top stitch around the two sides and then close up the bottom. So let's just show you how it would look a little bit better if we just trim here, not the webbing, just that extra piece of bulk there. You can't see a difference between the two, but I can feel the difference between the two. This one feels better, and I'm wondering if it'll look better when I top stitch, but I don't think it's too noticeable. Okay, so let's pull that down. My webbing, I left it a little bit too long. I should have pulled mine out a little bit more. It's okay. This one I did better, but it's all right. So let's go ahead and top stitch and then close the bottom. Let's take out that bottom piece, and I want these D-rings to go right above where the curve starts. And you want your D-ring to be pointing up. And I'm going to place mine on both sides. And I'm just going to base those in place. Let me make sure this one looks a little bit higher than the other one. Let me take it down just a little bit. Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to baste against that raw edge. So my back is complete. I'm going to take this lining piece. We're going to place these wrong sides together. Add a clip or two. And now I'm going to baste all around the perimeter of this, attaching that exterior to the lining. Something I didn't think about, and I want you to think about it. I have this thicker part with the connector and the webbing exactly where I have this thicker part of that slip pocket. So you would probably want to consider offsetting these so they're not giving your machine a little bit of grief. I do so on a domestic, so that little bit extra bulk does matter. So it's not going to like stop me from having a great bag. It's just going to be a little bit trickier, especially when I get to go to add the binding onto this. So if you do a slip pocket like me with this light-up bag, you might want to just make sure yours is a little bit longer or a little bit shorter so you can skip that little area there with the connector. So now I have the back piece done. I have the front piece done. Do you see how quick this is coming together? Let's go ahead and grab out my zipper piece, the zipper panel piece, and the actual zipper. My zipper, as always, I keep it cut a little bit longer than I need to because I love to have that extra room for me to add the pulls. I will add 2 pulls onto this. So what I'll do is I'll take this zipper panel piece and my zipper tape and place them right sides together. I'm just going to sew along here with 1/4 inch seam allowance. I like to have a little bit of my zipper tape showing. If you don't like that, you could go into 3/8 inch. It won't matter too much in the end. If your bottom gusset ends up being wider than this zipper panel, you could always just trim it down. I'm not doing anything special even though I'm sewing on this jelly. This jelly really sews well on domestic machines. It's just a lot easier to work with than clear vinyl because it's more of a kind of like a silicone feel. So now that I have that attached, I did lose a little bit of my seam allowance there. It's okay. I'm just going to fold this zipper tape back. I have to push down that jelly vinyl seam because if not, it would close up where the zipper teeth will be and I won't be able to open the zipper. So fold the seam allowance down, and then that is what you'll top stitch. So when I top stitch, I will be going through the jelly vinyl and the seam and the zipper tape all at once. So now that I got that, I'm going to add my 2 zipper pulls. That is so cool. So cool. If you wanted to make this into a crossbody, you could even put D-rings there. I don't want to. Of course, I'm using it as the pattern was written as a sling bag. I'm just trimming the extra zipper tape. I'm going to take my bottom gusset piece, and let's see, I want the words to go like this around, so I'll need to attach this side. So you can see whenever I put these two together that my zipper panel is a little bit less wide than my bottom gusset piece. I'm going to go off camera and trim that up, and then we'll come back to sew it. So we are getting so close. I went ahead and trimmed up the bottom gusset to match this zipper panel. And what I'm going to do now is I'll have my lining right sides up. I will put on that zipper panel right sides up. I'm going to go ahead and just put a few clips in there to hold that in place. To make for sure that I had the bottom gusset, since it has words on it that they were going in the right way, I want them to go like this, so I'm going to flip it and place it right sides together like that. Whenever you're sewing on a gusset, this is the only time that it's really important that you use the proper seam allowance. Lots of times the seam allowance is okay if you're, as long as you're consistent, but here on the gusset is the main place I always follow, because the designer has tested this gusset with that seam allowance to make sure that it fits properly around the bag. So I am going to make for sure that I sew with the seam allowance given the pattern, and I'm going to top stitch whenever I start and stop. Whenever I'm finished sewing on this gusset, you will see me pulling the two bottom gusset pieces wrong sides together so I can top stitch on the bottom gusset. Pulling this apart, I'm wondering if I should have had this the other way. Should have had these words going the other way. I don't know. Maybe I should have, but I'm not going to change it now. Maybe it's okay no matter which way you do it, but I probably should have done it that way. You always think about these things after the fact. But anyway, what I'm going to do is I pulled those wrong sides together, and I'm just going to top stitch now on that bottom gusset piece. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bottom end of that gusset, the other side, the other short side, and place it right sides together with that other edge of the zipper panel. Take that lining, here's the short edge of it, and place it right sides together with the exterior bottom gusset. So you're making a zipper sandwich with both of the bottom gusset pieces right sides together, with that zipper and panel just sandwiched in between. Again, you sew with that same seam allowance. And again, you're going to pull these wrong sides together. But at this point, what I'm going to do is I am going to start sewing, and like this is going to be a basting stitch. So I want to base all the way down this side, and then come down here to the lining, top stitch, and then baste all the way back, just so this is all one piece. That'll just be easier when we're attaching it to the main panels. Okay, now we have that gorgeous loop with everything attached. We're ready to put this bag together. So we are going to work with the front first. I'm only going to show one side of doing this like I typically do my videos. I will do the other side off camera. But the way I'm going to do this is I'm just going to find my quarter marks on the main panel and on the gusset. So there's my top and bottom quarter or half marks, I should say. And now I'll fold that and find the quarter marks. So that is how that looks. I will put these two seams together to find the half marks or the center marks, however you want to call it, on the gusset. And I'm going to go ahead and mark both sides because we will have to add this to the back, of course, too. Push those half marks or center marks together and get your quarter marks. Okay, we're not doing anything different here, still just a typical bag. Let's go ahead and put right sides to right sides with this front panel. I want my zipper against the front. The back portion back here will go against the back. So that is the way I'm doing this. Going to line up those marks first so it's right sides together, and just do a few clips here to have that kind of secured. Go down to the bottom, do the same thing. Go to the sides, just a few clips just to secure it, and then we will ease in all the curves. Okay, so this is what I have right now. I'm just going to continue to ease everything in. If there's any problems, if I need to do any adjusting, I will do that. But typically, this is a pattern that fits really well together. Okay, so now I have this already put together. Here is where I'm going to deviate just a little bit from the way I typically do a gusseted bag. Usually I baste everything in place first. I usually go around with 1/8 of an inch, then I come around with the binding and do the full seam allowance. I'm not going to do that with this one because I want to make kind of like a pocket for that light to go in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew all the way around with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. This is going to allow me to put that light, the wire, inside this just a little bit so it'll sit nicely in there. When I come around the corner, you can see I'm just kind of smushing that down. It'll look ugly in wrinkles, but as long as I don't go over, if I don't sew over a pucker, I'm okay. And so whenever I'm sewing, I'll just make sure I'm smashing each little piece so I don't sew over any like crinkled parts of the material. We're good to go. And if you were to have to sew over a small crease, it's okay. It's not the end. Your bag's still going to look good. Around this zipper tape, I'm going to be sewing decently close to the teeth. I lost my seam allowance several times on this, so I'm just going to push this out to see how it looks. So we're just going to get a really good visual to make sure. And it was mainly here at the top, so that's the part I'm wanting to check and see. It still looks fine. I'm good. I just was struggling with that a little bit. I am not going to trim down my seams at all. So what I'm going to do now is open up this bag. So you take the end of the battery pack and the end of your lights, and it's just going to slide in there. There's only one way it'll slide and fit. You'll hear a little snap. So I don't know if you can see that with the light on, but it does work. Everything does work. So now that I know it works, I'm going to go ahead and unsnap it again and separate those two. I'll put the battery pack aside. And what I want to do, I'm going to take off this little end cap here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this inside of that pocket I made. So I'm just going to slip it all the way in there, and I'm going to put some clips to hold it in place while I'm feeding it all the way around. I'm not so much tucking it down there tight, like all the way down in there. I'm just kind of laying it in there at the top because we want the light to be able to be seen, but we just need to kind of create that little pocket for it to sit down in. Feeding in the zipper, so you're just pushing that zipper tape a little bit out of the way to make that opening, clipping as you go. Okay, and now I'm back here to where it started. You're going to have plenty of lighting left You could run it around here twice, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this extra to put on the back. So I have a front glow and a back glow. That's what I did with my last one. I liked the way it worked. Everything went fine. Now, we're going to bind this, but we're not going to use a traditional binding. You have a couple options here. You could use a clear vinyl to bind. You could use a white or light colored jelly vinyl to bind, or you can do what I do. I don't use those. I feel like they're a little trickier to work with, especially with binding, and I feel like it's a little crazy. So what I do, and this is probably gonna sound crazy, is I use window screen. So this is a stiff mesh window screen. I can leave the link for it, but I buy it in a roll. It's very cheap. I think the roll was only like $10, $15, and it's a huge roll. I use it sometimes to make mesh pockets or things like that. It's just, I don't know, it's just fun to sew with. But since it's clear, since it's stiff, it's perfect for me to use as the binding for this. When I fold it, it's going to hold that shape really good, and it's not going to be slipping around like I feel the clear vinyl will. So I'm going to place this all around here. The tricky part is going to be that I don't want to pierce the light with my needle. And you think, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? We're sewing like this, and this is the way we're doing it. Yeah, this is the way we're doing it. It's not hard. You just got to make sure you know where that light is when you're sewing. Like, see here how it's sticking up, the wire sticking up? That's fine. I can see it. If there is a spot I'm getting ready to sew over and I don't see that wire, I just need to stop and kind of manipulate it to get it to where I can see it a little bit better and go through it. For me, it's not a problem because when I'm sewing, my foot is automatically trying to push the wire out of its housing a little bit. I'm going to sew with that same 3/8 of an inch of a seam allowance. So my foot's going to be there, and I've never had it to not want to push that wire out. My bigger problem is keeping that wire in. So I think you'll find the same thing. Now around your zipper tape, make sure your binding doesn't go to the teeth, which mine is nowhere near my teeth, so I'm completely fine. I'm just going to keep going around, encasing the raw edge and that light. Now you can see we're going to come across a part where we would have to be really careful to not get this stuck under our needle. So when we get to that part, we will stop and we will jump stitches over there. We won't sew over that to connect it. We will stop our stitches. We won't break them, but we'll lift up our needle and kind of pull it through. So there will be a skipped stitch there on purpose, so that we don't sew through the wire. I know it sounds confusing, but it's not. It's not bad. Since this is a non-frame material, I do not have to worry at all about it fraying. It's going to be just fine there. I'm going to make sure that I start and have this extra out of the way so I can see where it's going to end. So this is the way it looks. I'm going to come down, get it all wrapped around a little bit more. I'm going to put it under my needle just like I always will. You can see that it's already, like, it's wanting to push that out. You're not, I think it'd be really hard to sew over because it does not want to stay in there. It wants to come out the whole time. Okay, so let me make sure I'm getting this pushed far enough. I'm just making sure I'm catching it at the very bottom of where I want. You would probably want to do better than me with having your thread match your bag. I used a dark thread. It's okay. Okay, so all we do is start slowly stitching. We're making sure we're catching our binding. We're making sure that our light, you can, I don't know if you can see that wire, but it's completely out. It's just, that's the way it does. The foot just pushes that wire out. So it's just almost floating in my mesh. I'm feeling right here. I don't see it, so I'm feeling. I can feel it with my finger. That wire is right there, so I'm still great to go. Even though I don't see it, I can feel it. I know where it is. Okay, we're really close. Like here's where I'm right now. Here is where my stitches first started, but here is where that wire is going across. I can't stitch over here without risking puncturing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift up my needle, lift up my foot, and I'm going to skip over. It's not going to be a big enough skip to where it's going to let everything unravel and fall apart. I'm going to go ahead when I start stitching again, I'll go ahead and do a back stitch to make sure I lock everything back in again. And that's how I get over that wire without puncturing it with my needle. Okay, so my binding is sewn around on the bag. I know I would turn on the light so you could see it, but you're not going to be able to see it with it being so light in my sewing room. So the first side is done. I'm going to repeat those same steps with this wire to this other side. So I'm not going to do anything different at all. It's just the exact same process. I'm just not going to show it online. So we'll go through that when I come back. I'll explain how I'm going to put the battery pack in here, show you all that, and then we'll turn the bag, attach the strap, and turn out the lights. So I have the binding finished on both sides of the bag. What I do is I take this clip here and I'm going to feed it carefully through that opening, the grommet, and just pull it through. Now I'm not going to attach it to the battery pack just yet because while I'm turning it, it could flop out or something because where it's kind of heavy. So I'm just going to turn it and then I'll put that battery pack in there at the very end. The turning, I want to be very careful because I have a lot of stuff going on. So I'll probably take this out of frame so I can do it really close to my body and turn the bag slowly by poking out these sides and bottoms first. I can't believe how good this shape looks even before I've shaped it and poked everything out fully. Everything is turning out great. I have a few loose threads I definitely need to trim, but everything's looking wonderful. I still probably will do some shaping after just to get that binding to lay the way I want. I turned this out so slowly because I have the wires and also because I have that metal tag in the back. I definitely don't want to do anything with that. So you can see with the jelly, you just kind of pull and push to stretch it out to get it to take the shape you want. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can zip it up and finish shaping it partially zipped. But I will put some clips in there overnight to continue to teach the vinyl and the jelly the way I want it to lay. But I am extremely impressed with how good it looks so far. Everything looks great. That is amazing. I love it so much. I love this pattern though. This is one of my favorite patterns. It just comes together so quick and so easy. You can see right here, definitely need to spend some time kind of pulling and poking those corners to shape them all out. Everything looks good. Everything turned out perfectly. I need to make the strap. I'm going to do a very simple strap. So here is the webbing. Let me stick it out of the way. So for me, I don't do anything fancy with the strap. I just take my adjustable bar. I feed it up and then over. I do a fold to get that raw edge tucked in, and then I fold it again, and then that is where I will sew. I typically will sew twice across there, or you can rivet, whatever you want. So that's the first thing I do. Then I come over, making sure it's not twisted, slip on one swivel hook. And then I'll take that free edge once again, feed it up and under one more time. And then what I'm going to do is just take that last remaining swivel hook and clip it on there. So now what I'll need to do is I'll need to sew these two parts right here where I have clipped. And that'll finish that. I'm going to do that off camera. That's not a big deal in doing that, but that is the way it'll look. And that'll be the end of the bag. But now we have to turn off the lights to see how it looks and to check out how our light is glowing. I'm going to prop it up right there, make sure I get it into frame. Okay, so I've got the bag in frame. I'm simply going to take my battery pack, drop it in that slip pocket, clip these two pieces together. Okay. I'm going to reach in here and turn on the battery pack. Has several different ways to turn it on. So there is a fast blink, a slow blink, but I'm just going to leave it on steady so we can see it. Let me zip it back up. Turn off my sewing machine, and look, guys, oh my gosh, it's gorgeous. I just love it. I just love it. Okay, let me turn back on my lights. So this Light Up Mav Pack is sold as a kit. This is from K&A Custom Fabrics. The Mav Pack is, of course, from Linds Handmade. I will have the link to both in my description here. But guys, you can see this doesn't really take that much more time than a traditional Mav Pack, and it's not hard at all. Try it. This is my second Light Up bag. I couldn't be more pleased with how they turn out and how quick they come together. Try the bag, try the pattern, and let me know what you think. If you have any questions about how to sew one of these, let me know. And I hope today that you get to sew something fun and unique in your sewing room.